So turn it now. Okay. We'll turn it over now to Paul Fisk, and he'll be giving his presentation on the details within the Inflation Reduction Act. So take it away, Paul.
Okay. The trickiest part is always sharing my screen and getting this set up properly. I got most nervous about this.
Yeah.
Okay, what do we see in here? I don't know how to get rid of that. This meeting, I don't know who's recording it either, but
I'm recording it, Paul, and we don't see what you're seeing. We just see your slide.
Yeah.
oh,
looks
okay, good. Let me adjust my screen a little and get my talking points up. Okay, there are lots of folks here tonight that I don't recognize, frankly, and some that I do, I know to be longtime climate activists, but there's some other folks who are just beginning to consider replacing aging heating and cooling equipment. So please bear with me for a few minutes while I try and do a little bit of level setting. Then we've got a lot of ground to cover on the credits and the rebates. The IRA seeks to save energy and money, plus combat global warming by incentivizing households to electrify and replace fossil fuel equipment. It's got that mix of energy tax credits and rebates that can save you a lot of money, but it's going to take a lot of time or a little time to phase in many of these benefits and provisions, as the Congressman mentioned. The eligibility requirements and the benefit amounts can be kind of complex to determine. And as he said, there's still some moving parts in this. We'll send out tonight's slides later on with over 30 clickable links where you can check benefits as future rules and programs roll out and get assistance navigating the programs. So don't feel you have to take notes or remember everything. There's way too much detail for that. The goal here is to give you resources to work from as you plan your upgrades over time. And remember that there are many moving parts and some implementation details are yet to be determined. It's all about electrification being better for all of us. As you know, the CO2 and methane from fossil fuels traps the heat and warms the planet. Natural gas is mostly methane. So burning fossil fuels to create electricity wastes much of their energy as heat as well as polluting it. And gas and diesel engines pollute and waste much of their energy as heat. Electricity is cleaner, more efficient, and cheaper than fossil fuels, particularly when produced from renewable energy. There's a lot of help getting you started on these benefits. The Congressman mentioned Rewiring America, an excellent organization that specializes in this. They've put out a savings calculator that lets you estimate what benefits you may be eligible to receive. There's a link there that's clickable you'll get that you can fill out, and we'll take a look at that calculator a little bit later on, but it's a good way to figure out what you might be eligible for. You can get a free energy audit through NYSERDA, and that's that was Paul's former job before he came to the Congress. But they'll arrange to get you a free look at your home in terms of finding out where it's wasting energy. In New York, you can also get free energy coaches from New Yorkers for Clean Power who can help you answer energy questions as well as answer some questions you didn't even know you had. You can contact NYSERDA's regional clean energy hubs. There are 12 of them around the state. Locally in the Albany area, it's done through the Affordable Housing Partnership. They're a source of outreach and awareness and education, particularly in disadvantaged communities. Excuse me. And you can get help finding a qualified heat contractor, again, through NYSERDA. And there's a link to how you can get help there. They say that some 42% of America's energy-related emissions come from the decisions we make around the kitchen table. By that, I mean the millions of machines we purchase for our homes, the stoves, grills, cooktops, water heaters, dryers, space heaters, furnaces, and of course, our vehicles. There are many opportunities to electrify and improve efficiency in our households. You can get community solar and wind, in some cases, efficient heat pumps, high performance envelopes, and then insulation for your home, high performance windows, smart building controls, efficient electric water heater, efficient electric appliances and lighting, and of course, our vehicles. Heat pumps are a key technology here, but one that's not well known or understood by many. You've got air source heat pumps, ground source heat pumps, even heat pump water heaters, and now they're starting to make heat pump dryers. So what are heat pumps? It's not well known, intuitive, or a catchy phrase. Many have never heard of them. Others don't know what they do. And a few people can actually explain exactly how they work. And I'm not one of those few. I do know they're like a two-way refrigerator that can both cool and heat. They don't generate heat, but pump it from outside to inside to heat, and vice versa to cool. The Washington Post noted last week that some scientists have suggested that we find catchier names like two-way air conditioner, icy hot fan blaster, electric heat cooler machines, or clean green comfort machine. But basically, you need to know that they can replace both a furnace and an air conditioner and perform both tasks more efficiently. The New York Times ran an article on heat pumps a few months ago, pointing out that as they go mainstream and they really handle the cold, and the answer is yes, they actually outsold gas furnaces in the US last year for the first time. 1 out of 6 homes in Maine now use heat pumps, and that's growing. They're being used in Alaska. Now, it's true they may need some supplemental heating infrequently in extremely cold situations. When we had that really cold spell this winter, one household in Maine that uses air source heat pumps reported not having to supplement them with lighting fireplaces until that cold snap we had when it went to 30 degrees below zero in Maine. The electrification incentives come in 2 parts, the tax credits and the rebates. The IRS is issuing rules on the credits and handling that program. Right now, they're generally available when you're going to file your 2023 income tax returns. Each program has specific eligibility requirements and other parameters, and they're generally available to all homes with some income limits for vehicles. The rebates won't be available, as the Congressman mentioned, until later this year or early next year. That's because the federal government is going to be giving grants to the states to develop the programs that are unique to the states. The Department of Energy must first issue the rules, then the states must initiate the programs in accordance with the rules. Generally, they're going to be available to low and moderate income people at the time of sale. As I get into the detail of the various incentives, I'm going to be borrowing very heavily from Rewiring America materials. Congressman already mentioned them. That's a not-for-profit that specializes in this. They were both comprehensive and more concisely worded than what I was coming up with from the government sources, frankly. They're offering, well, there are 2 types of rebates involved here. One type for purchasing the technologies that were already mentioned, heat pumps, heat pump water heaters, stoves, heat pump clothes dryers, etc. And the target population here is low and moderate income households who can get up to a maximum of $14,000 in benefits. And there's $4.5 billion appropriated for that or outlined for it. That may sound like a lot of money, but given the tens of millions of households that could apply, that money may go fairly quickly. There's a second type of rebate for a whole house improvement program that includes heat pumps, but you do an overall look at the house and either model or measure in accordance with standards that are yet to be published. And then if you save a certain amount of energy, then you're eligible for the rebate. It's a complex program. We'll talk more about it later. But there's up to $8,000 available to low and moderate income folks and $4,000 to others. Again, $4 billion available, but it could go fairly quickly. On the credit side, you've got credits for purchasing heat pumps, heat pump water heaters, weatherization panels, and energy audits. Anyone with a tax liability who actually pays taxes can get a credit of up to 30% of up to $3,200 per year. And there's no budget cap on this. It's however many people. There are solar and storage credits that cover geothermal and storage and solar panels. Again, anyone with a tax liability, 30% of the cost can be recovered as a credit, and that's uncapped. And finally, there are the vehicle credits for new and used vehicles that you've undoubtedly heard about, up to $7,500 for new or $4,000 for used. The point in the information that we're going to be giving you is to try and get you to plan ahead. Most credits and rebates will remain available at least until 2030 or 2031. You don't need to do it all at once. You can use the benefits to replace fossil fuel powered vehicles and home equipment with electrified systems as the older ones need replacement over time. Just don't wait until things fail to plan for replacements. As the congressman pointed out, right now, while you could get a gas furnace quickly if yours failed in the winter, it's less likely you can find people ready to install off-the-shelf heat pump type equipment. So if you make a plan as to when things are likely to expire and be ready to move before they break down, savings from one replacement can help finance the next one. And key here, the federal benefits can usually be combined with state and utility company benefits to further reduce the cost of electrification. So the electrification and tax credits, efficiency tax credits, up to $2,000 for heat pumps, $1,200 for installation, $600 for electrical panels and circuits, $600 for windows, $500 for doors, $150 for energy audits. The way this works, to get $600 for windows, it's a 30% credit. So you'd have to spend $2,000 worth of windows, which is not hard to do, to get that $600 benefit. There's an annual credit cap per household of $3,200 that's split between $2,000 for heat pumps and heat pump water heaters and $1,200 for everything else. Now this credit resets every year. So you may want to plan to have projects span more than 1 year to take full advantage of the credits. Excuse me. The residential clean energy credit. This is the more complicated. No, excuse me, never mind. That's not what I'm talking about. The 30% tax credit for solar panels, battery storage, geothermal heat pumps, solar water heating, fuel cells, wind energy installations on your property. That's available now and retroactive to 2022, which is not the case for most of these, although there are existing credits that are smaller that were in place for 2022. How do you claim these credits? You can make sure your household will owe enough federal income tax to be offset by the value of the credit. Make sure your purchase meets the tax credit's relevant efficiency and product standards. Save the receipts and get ready to fill out the IRS forms with your taxes. The credits are not refundable, so you need to have adequate federal income tax liability to claim them. Renters are going to be eligible for portable equipment. The electrification efficiency credits are not available for new construction, but the solar and storage credits are. Here's a link to the frequently asked questions from the IRS and a source of follow-up information. And again, I just remind you, you're going to get copies of all of this, hopefully later tonight. And you don't have to remember all of this stuff. On the rebate side, point of sale rebates up to $14,000 for low and moderate income households who install new efficient electric appliances. Again, here are the limits: $8,000 for a heat pump, $4,000 for electrical panel upgrades, $2,500 for rewiring, $1,750 for a heat pump water heater, and so on. A low-income household is defined as less than 80% of the area median income. I'll explain that in just a few minutes. But people who are in this low-income category can get 100% rebates on these equipments up to these limits. So they basically can get things for free. Moderate income households are defined as with incomes between 80 and 150% of the area median income. They can get a 50% rebate. These will be administered by the state energy offices, and again, available late this year or next. And the details to be forthcoming when the states actually can set up the programs under the new rules. How do you get these rebates? You're going to have to either be pre-qualified or income verified at the point of sale. And the states are going to have to develop the programs on how they're going to ensure that people are income qualified. Could be through their tax department, could be if you're eligible for such and such social program, those eligibility requirements are the same, so you're automatically eligible for this. It remains to be seen how the states are going to implement that. The rebates are going to flow through contractors or big box retailers. And you'll get the qualified technologies. If you purchase, you get the rebates up front at the point of sale. Other things to keep in mind, again, funding could run out. Renters are eligible for the portable equipment. It's likely not going to be retroactive. There will be Energy Star efficiency standards. The rebates are stackable with tax credits, in that you can get both the tax credit and the rebate up to the amount that you actually spent. And there are some incentives for contractors in here. Okay, area median income is the middle household in a given region. In the Albany, Schenectady, Troy MSA, it was $106,000 for 2022. And that covers actually a 5-county area. But family size also comes into the determination of eligibility. There's a chart for what that looked like in 2022 that is linked here. I'll show you that in a minute. The 2023 information is not out yet. The Department of Housing and Urban Development is responsible for making these calculations, and they are shooting to release the new 2023 stuff on or about May 15th. So it should be available soon. If you look at the report of 2022 income limits, we see over here for Albany, Schenectady, Troy, the 106,000. The low income 80% limit for a family of 4 was $84,800 to be eligible. And that varies by family size, as you can see here. For a family of 2, it goes down to $67,850. I don't know if they're going to be publishing the 150% for the family of 4. That looks to be the 106,000 plus the 53, or 159,000 is the max for middle income. But there are formulas underneath this when you click for more detail that I don't think you can extrapolate in a straight line on the rest of these. We'll have to see when the chart comes out. Now, the efficiency rebates, these are the complicated ones where you either model in advance or measure after the fact the actual savings to be had from the upgrades that you're making. There's a cap of $8,000 on the benefit. You can get 80% coverage or 80% rebate for a low-income household. And other households can get 50% coverage with a $4,000 cap. And this one is not just limited to middle income. It's not totally income qualified. How much you're going to save in energy as a percentage also figures into the calculation of what your benefit is going to be. Again, these rules are going to have to be promulgated and set up by the state. There'll be a lot to catch up on when that comes out. And so it'll be late in the year or next year before we know enough about that. How do you get them? You're going to have to work with a contractor or someone who is familiar with the modeling. And they will conduct energy audits to verify either the model or the measured energy savings. And so the rebates will be delivered to consumers, but not necessarily at the point of sale. Other things, they're fuel neutral, which is not necessarily something environmentalists like. The funding may run out. Rebates are ramping up for multifamily buildings. They're likely not going to be retroactive. There are no efficiency standards. It's all governed by how much you actually save in energy. They are stackable with tax credits, so you can combine the two up to the amount that you spend. So for the rebate programs here, if you can't wait to do something and you can't access the new programs yet, you may well be eligible for existing tax credits. There's a weatherization assistance program, as well as other state, local, and utility programs. So these are clickable links to the information on those. NYSERDA has a number of programs we'll talk about later. Here's a link to their operation. And National Grid in this local area, one of the utilities have different programs of their own, and you can look in your area for what may be available from the utility itself. Here's the links to the frequently asked questions and more information from the Federal Department of Energy on what's known now about what's going on. Okay, the savings calculator. Rewiring America put this out, and it can help you get a good idea of what you might be eligible for. But keep in mind that it's not going to be the final answer. They can't take all the variables and all the unknowns now into account. But it's a good way to get started. They're working on a new version that's going to be available this summer, and they're working on including New York State NYSERDA program savings in this calculator for New York. So you'd get both the federal and state calculations in one, and that would be very handy when that comes out. Eventually, the product vendors are going to be able to assist you in determining whether or not you're eligible, but they are not up to speed yet. So if you go to this savings calculator, this is the screen you'll see. It asks you what's your zip code, your homeowner status as a owner or renter, household income, tax filing status, household size, calculate. What you'll get back, here's a list of all the potential rebates. Since nothing was filled out when I shot this one, this is all rebates at the maximum. If you put in a high income, then some of these would disappear if you were not eligible for them. But it gives your estimated amount of the most you might be able to get and a link for more information about that particular rebate. Similarly, same information for all the tax credits that are being offered. And these are handy summaries of the benefits that are available. Again, you'll get all this. Well, that's what I've got for home electrification credits and rebates for you to take away. Vehicles are up next, and there are moving parts here as well. There's the clean vehicle credit for new electronic vehicles of $7,500 you undoubtedly heard about, but it's tied to critical mineral, battery component, and final assembly requirements. There are income limits, $300,000 max per household, $150,000 for singles, and limits on the MSRPs. They did do away with the per manufacturer or per unit manufacturer caps. It used to be once Toyota sold X thousand of an eligible model, nobody else could get more credits. They stopped that. There are no limits on that way. Previously owned vehicles, $4,000 tax credit, different income limits, $150,000 per household or $75,000 for singles. And there is a limit on the price, but they're not tied to the battery or mineral or assembly requirements. And finally, for a charging station, you can get a 30% tax credit up to $1,000 for residential charging installations. However, that's limited to rural and low-income census tracts. The vehicles must meet other requirements, including final assembly in North America. The MSRP limits are generally $55,000 for cars, $80,000 for vans, SUVs, and pickups. In 2023, credits when income taxes are filed. Later on in 2024, you'll be able to get the credit at the point of sale from the dealer. You won't have to wait until you file your taxes. Now, the clean vehicle credits are split into two parts. $3,750, the credit for vehicles that meet certain critical mineral requirements. Minerals extracted or processed in the United States or in a country with which the United States has a free trade agreement. The second $3,750 credit requirements a percentage of battery components that must be manufactured or assembled in North America. And starting in 2024, they can't have battery components manufactured or assembled by a foreign entity of concern, which is China, Russia, North Korea, and Iran. Now, there are some controversies and a bit of a kerfuffle involving the new rules that the administration came out April 18th with new rules on eligibility for the cars. And it substantially reduces the number of models that are currently qualified. On the one hand, the administration is trying to balance having more clean cars that'll help the climate with bringing jobs and materials and our supply chains under control in the US or with our allies. I mentioned the free trade agreement requirement because according to the newspapers, the small group of people who finally negotiated this allegedly were not aware that we did not have free trade agreements with Japan and the European Union. So the administration has said, well, this IRA Act does not actually define free trade agreement. So we're going to have make a trade agreement with Japan and say that that qualifies. And they hope to do the same with the European Union to make them eligible. There appears to be a loophole to allow leased cars to qualify without all these restraints. You may have seen ads already on TV from South Korean manufacturers who talk about getting the full $7,500 credit for leased cars. The administration is going to be clarifying how much investment could be received from China and Russia and still qualify. All of this has Senator Manchin a little perturbed. He feels that the purpose of the law is to bring manufacturing and materials to the US to secure our energy and supply chains, and it's not just environmental. So he has variously said he might sue or he might vote against his own IRA bill if it comes to that in the Senate. So stay tuned. Things have the makings of a bit of a soap opera here, and we'll see what, if anything, happens. Here are links to the current lists of eligible vehicles, both new and used, and the IRS frequently asked questions page. When you look at the current vehicles that qualify, you see 1 Cadillac model, 5 Chevy models, 1 Chrysler model, 6 Ford models, the F-150 Lightning, if you can find one, and the Mustang Mach-E primarily here, 2 Jeep models, 2 Lincoln models, 5 Tesla models, 2 Rivians, and 8 different variations of the Volkswagen ID4. And that's all that qualifies for new car purchasing at the moment. Obviously, that list is going to change over time as manufacturers are making investments in the battery operations and manufacturing in the state, as well as assembly of models. So it's going to change steadily over time. For previously owned vehicles that you buy in 2023 and on through 2032. Basically, the model year of the vehicle has to be at least 2 years earlier than the calendar year in which you purchase it. So in 2023, the car must be a 2021 or earlier model to qualify here. Consumers with adjusted gross incomes for the current or preceding year of $150,000 for couples or $75,000 for singles are eligible. Individuals can claim only once per 3 years. Vehicles must be sold by a dealer. Sale price must be $25,000 or less, and it can only be claimed once on any given vehicle. The basic credit is the lesser of $4,000 or 30% of the sale price. And initially, this year, the income tax credit would be taken when you file your tax returns for this year. But as with new cars, by next year, you should be able to get the credit at the point of sale. So that's all I've got on the federal incentives from the IRA. But the state also has incentives for heat pumps, solar, and electrical vehicles. I don't go into all of those state details, but I give you links to the NYSERDA programs that are in effect now. And that's here. They've got a heat pump program, home energy efficiency programs, assisted home performance with Energy Star programs, clean heating and cooling communities campaign, residential energy assessment program, residential financing programs, and drive clean electric vehicles. And these may change as the new rebates from the feds are thrown into the mix. I'll leave you with some of the major references. The Rewiring America Guide to the Inflation Reduction Act, I found to be the most readable and comprehensive source of information. And they've got many examples of different income levels and what they may qualify for. So there's a link to that here and another link to that calculator we talked about. The IRA guide is like a booklet. It's online, but it's like a 30-page book. There's a easily digestible online basic federal guide that you can use to explore the different benefits that the Energy Department puts out at this link. The IRS credits and reductions are described again under this link. Department of Energy rebate programs, NYSERDA's programs again. The White House publishes Clean Energy Inflation Reduction Guidebook, which covers the entire IRA if you're interested in other programs other than these credits and rebates. And they publish clean energy updates. So in summary, all this can save you lots of money in both upfront costs and energy bills. And it can help fight the climate crisis, but it'll only do so if you make a plan and take advantage of it. So we're hoping it's a win-win plan for all of us. You'll be getting an email, hopefully later tonight, with a portable document format or PDF file that contains all the slides and the clickable links. If you somehow did not register and provide your email address and you want a copy, please put your email in the chat, but I've got 85 emails ready to go here. For technical problems with that, you can email me at the address on the screen. Please don't make me regret having put my email on the screen. You can put questions you have now in the chat and we'll see what we can do to answer them. But please remember that, at least speaking for myself, there are things that are still in flux, and I have already told you pretty much everything I was able to learn about this over the past couple of months. So it's unlikely I'm going to be able to add much more. We've tried to give you as comprehensive and helpful a start as planning as we could at this time. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Paul. All right. Amazing amount of stuff. So I had to have a few questions that already came up. We'll try and run through those. I'm not sure which Paul should be responding to all of them, but I'll let the two Pauls figure that out between themselves. The first one, I might actually be able to give some insight on. There's a question about whether any of this is available for nonprofits. And I know that both the Interfaith Power and Light and the Unitarian Universalist Association are both running seminars on what's available for nonprofits, and our Green Sanctuary team is following those. So we'll continue to watch that. And there will be some money available for nonprofits who obviously can't take advantage of the tax credits. So that's my answer to that one. I don't know if either of you have any comments on that or not at this point. No. Okay. This is a very specific question. I don't know if we can answer. Is there a rebate or a credit for changing from a resistance electric to an inductive electric stove?
No, unfortunately.
All right, list of things. This is a more general question. This group is obviously a group that's interested in pursuing these types of savings. What would be your suggestions for moving beyond the climate activist types who are watching this presentation? How can we reach out to a broader audience to let them know about these things and help them take advantage of them? And that's sort of a general question, but leave it to if either one of you want to take a stab at that. You'd have to unmute Paul Tonko. Yeah. Okay, he's trying. I have to ask you to unmute, or now try it.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Well, I think it's certainly, the activists are involved because I think there's this dual concern of addressing the needs of the planet, of decarbonization, but also the economic benefits. But I think when the economic benefits become more and more understood, and that ether floats through the community, I think there would be a natural tendency for people to have workshops like this. And, Paul indicated that there are many steps yet to be defined. The promulgating of rules and regs by the agencies is taking a while. And we have to recall, too, that a number of these agencies, EPA, DOE, were gutted. And so now they've had to ramp up the staffing levels at these agencies to get the word out and get the dollars out. So I think all of that will happen, but I think there will be a natural curiosity. And, people like things that will save them money. And I think that while the advocacy or the interest may not be as driven about clean energy and climate stewardship, but the economic benefits will certainly lure in a great audience.
I'm
So I
hoping
think
you're right.
natural evolvement.
Mhm. Great, okay, thanks. Another technical question, and I don't know if you can answer this, Paul F. Is the AMI based on adjusted gross income? Or is it some other bottom line thing?
I, I think it's adjusted gross income, but I'm not 100% sure of that. If you
Mhm.
click on the link in the table, there's a formula that may explain it in there. When you get the link, you may be able to
Mhm.
find out more from clicking there.
Okay. And then in terms of any updates with regard to these rebates, are some of those links gonna be updated periodically as time goes on?
Well, I'm hoping that the people at the end of the links that I'm giving you are going to update their information. For
That's what I mean.
example, the frequently asked questions should be updated by the agencies as they go along. But
Yeah.
there's also in these regional hubs a responsibility for getting information out. And I think when more detail becomes available, we'll see more being, they're being funded to try and spread the word here and encourage stuff. And
Yeah.
the only thing I'd add to what Mr. Tonko said on getting the word out to non-activists is talk to your neighbors.
Mhm.
That's one of the best ways of getting the word out. Just talk to your neighbors.
Good. Another one is our new electrical panels, one of the eligibilities under the efficiency parts of the rebates. I don't know if we have an answer to that or not.
They're eligible if they're done in conjunction with another qualified thing. If you need it to power a heat pump, for example, they're eligible there. Although the credits and rebates and the different rebates may differ a little. One of those 4 or 5 things may not allow that. And off the top of my head, I can't remember which.
Okay. Good. All right. Okay, that was all the questions in the chat. I don't know if anybody wanted to raise their hand with a question. We could unmute you. Looking around for any raised hands. Chris, you see any raised hands?
Don't see any raised hands, but I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
Congressman Tonko, you mentioned disinformation. I just wonder what is the best approach to avoiding disinformation, getting good information? What do you know that we don't?
Yeah, I think with some, they are just anxious. Am I still unmuted? Can you
Yeah,
hear me?
yeah,
Okay. I think with some, a lot of that was coming from those who were trying to deny the IRA or the infrastructure bill that was passed last session. But for the general audience out there, I think perhaps they were misinformed, and so it's just sharing that word. But I think to the presentation Paul made tonight, there are links that carry a lot of strength and information that should be the go-to source. And there are a lot of people who wanted to misrepresent these bills or not understand fully or acknowledge fully, perhaps not even they understood it, but they just didn't want to acknowledge that they'll do good things, like investing in the grid system. There's, that serves us all. There will be opportunities here for getting those started up because one of the stumbling blocks is financing. And that's driven by the market. And some of these incentives will be the leverage we need to have these lines developed. So there's a lot of benefit there. And the attempts to roll this back, I think, was just an intent by some to deny this progress. It's complicated because they're trying to target the biggest bang for the buck. And I do know they have a lot of teams, overseeing what's going on. And even we've had hearings where each of the agencies have IGs, inspector generals, and they got additional resources to help audit and account for these dollars. So, everything's being done in a very mechanical, scientific, transparent way. And hopefully the information will get out there, and people should go to these agency links because they will have the latest data, and they are constantly updated as they get more tweaking involved to, again, get those into the legislative intent, the administrative intent. They will fine tune, and they've done that with the EVs as they've worked through the last several weeks. They keep updating exactly how these calculus outcomes are done.
Okay, good. All right. Go ahead. Carol, you have your hand up?
Yeah, when I did some of the renewable things in my home, I was able to take, if I didn't have enough taxes one year, my understanding was that I could spread out the rebate over, I think it was 5 years, and get is that still in place, that kind of a situation, that if you don't pay enough taxes one year, you can still take more of the rebate the next year when you pay some more taxes? Do you know if that's still in place?
I don't know for certain. You're talking tax credits, not rebates.
Right, that's what I mean. I mean, tax credits.
yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
I've not seen anything that explicitly says you can do that. My understanding, or the implication of what I've read, was that you had to spread your project actual costs out over the years to do it. But again, that's a detail that probably needs to be confirmed.
Because
Yeah, I know
that,
historically you could do that.
yeah, in the
with these
past,
types of- Yeah,
I think I had 5 years.
yeah.
And
I'm
also,
not-
I know this is a touchy subject, but I did a little research, and the research indicated that we are still paying many multiples of subsidies to the fossil fuel industry than we are for these projects. Is there anything that we can do? It's a tough subject because the influence of the fossil fuels is tremendous. But is there any way we can move that so that we can adjust that ratio of the subsidies to the fossil fuel so that so much? I mean, it's very frustrating when 1/5 or 1/4 of the subsidies goes to the renewables and the remedies for the climate crisis, and we're still allowing the fossil fuel industry to get about 4 or 5 times the subsidies that's going to these projects. And that's like very discouraging. We can do about that.
I think just raising your voice and, doing what you just did and appeal to Washington to change that. There have been attempts, and to your point, they're powerful. And
it's a steep slope.
Yeah, but I think more and more people are, as the generation of voters that are really attached to the climate issues continues to have its impact felt in elections. I think you're seeing more and more hope there to turn that around.
We need to work on the young people.
They're working on us already, which is great.
Okay,
They're bearing a lot of hope in the equation.
Okay.
great. Thanks. We got a
Thanks.
couple more hands. Gotta move on. Okay, Fred?
Okay, thank you. It's about $1.1 trillion in subsidies to the oil. That's an estimate for 2022 is an estimate of about 1.2 trillion dollars. We didn't see that though on the list of McCarthy's budget cuts. The question that I had is, I was at a conference very early last month up in Tupper Lake at the Wild Center on sustainability, where this was the primary consideration was IRA and the bilateral infrastructure law. Do any of these, and perhaps either one of the Pauls can answer, but a representative, do any of these rebates have impacts for other federal and state benefits such as SNAP or housing allowances that they are considered some sort of an income that will lessen the amount of money that people could get for those federal benefits? I know at the conference it was mentioned that if a family, let's say a family of a husband and a wife has a son or a daughter who's going to be working in one of the let's say contracting companies that's going to be installing HVAC or solar panels and the such, that income gets counted into the family income and the parents can lose their benefits. And would these rebates be considered as part of that? I guess you would call it an income package and affect, because what's happening is parents are telling their kids, don't take those jobs because we're going to lose our benefits. And there's an Essex and Franklin counties, there's a pretty significant shortage of people to do the work. There are 6 to 8 month wait periods for people to get their installations taken care of.
Yeah, I think, well, obviously income matters with the SNAP program and with a number of the feeding programs. But if I understand your question correctly, of course, if they're taking a clean energy job, that's going to be counted in. But then we're also trying to address through the Farm Bill the restructuring of some of these programs, because we see more and more people not qualifying. And one of the egregious factors there is that there's a national standard that addresses these programs when in fact it should be adjusted by state. Like Tennessee gets the same guidelines that New York does. Some of that impact that we have, the negative impact that we have on our state's take on programs like SNAP. So hopefully we can address that in the Farm Bill and not penalize those who are going to be involved in the clean energy work.
Yeah. The other factor that was sort of pointed out was in these areas of let's call them within the blue line, Franklin, Essex, especially Herkimer and Hamilton counties, where the poverty is some of the lowest in New York State. The ability for people to come up with the upfront cash to do this, when you've got some median incomes for certain age groups that are in the high 40s, low 50s, and a substantial amount of their money right now is going into the oil and propane tank fuels in the wintertime, and the gasoline that they're putting into their cars. So it doesn't allow them to have a very robust initial investment to take advantage of these. And a lot of these people are staunch red voters that will vote against the very people who are trying to provide the mechanisms to have those benefits given to them. And there's a political uphill battle that needs to be won to convince these people that this isn't some sort of conniving trick that liberals are trying to pull on to take more money away from them. We're trying to put money into their pockets, but they don't believe it because Sean Hannity and Tucker Carlson says, "Oh, they're taking your money."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those are,
Yeah, again, for public information and education here, and a lot of these numbers are scaled to assist those in the lowest income categories. So I'm hoping that we can lure people into what will be economically beneficial and environmentally advantageous. So
yeah, great. Okay, just a couple more questions. I think we'll try and wrap it up. But go ahead, Angelica.
Hi, that's actually a great segue to my question. Thanks, Paul Squared, for everything you've presented so far. And my question is more for the Congressman. I was wondering if there is any thoughts or plans around making this information more accessible by means of like a centralized website or source that we can rely on and point people to. It makes it really difficult and intimidating for people to access this information when it's so spread out. And thankfully, we have people like this group who have put these resources together, but it still is a lot. If you read through the comments, there was somebody who said their mind is swirling after all this information. So I was just wondering if
We'll
there's
continue with
any.
folks like DOE and IRS to make certain that we can centralize how best we can. Considering other options, and there are so many particulars here. It's very difficult to streamline to the point of one source, but I think we'll be able to do better as we with time to see where some of the stumbling blocks are with the general public. But I hear you. It's complicated.
Yeah. All right.
Let me just
Francesca.
add,
Oh, go ahead, Paul.
yeah, let me just add that there is money in the bill to do things like the coaches and the regional hubs.
Right.
And they're trying to get people out there to do just that. And it's just gonna take a while to get it all set up. But it's not a forgotten issue.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead, Francesca. You have to unmute. Let me try again.
All right, great. Yes, my question is this. We've heard over and over again through this presentation that the funding could run out for those low and moderate income rebates. And I guess that's something I'm concerned about. And I'd like to ask the congressman if that's going to be reconsidered, because we have a worsening situation of income inequality in this country. I was just reading an article about how New Yorkers, for example, in New York City are far poorer than they were even during the pandemic, because all the support money has gone away and inflation has eaten into things. So I would think that more and more people are falling into the categories of low and moderate income. And if we're going to be able to make the transition that we need and hit the targets that this act is supposed to address, we're going to need a lot more support there. And so I just wonder if that's any thought is going to rethinking that and adding money to those funds.
Right. And, as I indicated, Francesca, in the beginning here, I see these items as down payment and with more to continue. But based on what I saw in the debt ceiling bill that we were asked to vote on last week, there were some harsh and cruel cuts that are really going to affect some of the lowest income populations out there. And the discussions I've been having on the farm bill with workshops that we've done in the communities indicate the same. So I don't know if there's much hope for the next 18 months here, but the important thing is to take this moment, implement what we have, and educate and inform, and then there will be a greater audience, I think, to see examples, working examples all around them that will make the advocacy for what you're requesting possible. But right now, they're looking to roll back the incentives. They did some major cruel cuts in the inflation or the debt ceiling bill vote. So I think realistically, we're not going to see that for the next few months.
Okay, I think that's going to wrap it up, but I personally want to thank Paul Fisk for all of his efforts in putting this together.
Absolutely. Thank you, Paul.
And Paul Tonko for joining us and giving us the federal perspective on it, and for all of you folks for showing up, and get out there and spread the word, I guess, is my final statement on this whole thing. And let's get to keep this thing going. And I'd also like to do a little shout out to Patricia Brooks, who helped a great deal with the publicity of all this and helped us get one of the largest turnouts we've ever had for one of these forums. So
Terrific.
thank you all. Yeah.